While I was eating, I came across a post online. It was warning a man who had lied about going on a business trip, but in reality had gone on a honeymoon with his mistress. The post read, "Your wife already knows you're cheating. She's planning to show up at the hotel with your sister-in-law to catch you in the act. She's going to record everything and take half your assets in the divorce. You better be on guard. Don't let a woman like her get your money." The comment section was filled with insults toward the man. But the original poster remained smugly self-righteous. He wrote, "Men should help other men. If a man has another woman outside the relationship, it only means the woman at home has stopped being attractive. Shouldn't she reflect on herself more? When my girlfriend is busy working, I hang out with this innocent junior from college. I can't help it. Men need comfort too." I frowned and tapped on the guy's smug-looking profile picture, only to realize that all the signs of his daily life matched exactly with my boyfriend, who had just gone to the bathroom. The next second, his voice rang out in front of me. "Sorry, babe. That junior girl asked me about some experiment data. I was just checking." He casually put his phone down. I looked up at him and smiled slightly, trying to act like nothing was wrong. "Nothing much, just scrolling through some gossip." Shane sat down across from me. He picked up a bright red prawn and slowly peeled it with his long, clean fingers. He dipped the meat into sauce and brought it to my lips, his eyes so tender it could drown someone. I opened my mouth and took the sweet, juicy shrimp, but it tasted as bitter as chili. I nodded toward a recently emptied table nearby. "That table just now, before you came back, the girls next to us were talking about catching someone cheating. They just left. What do you think about that?" Shane raised his eyebrows slightly, paused to think, then spoke slowly. "Things in relationships are hard to explain." He placed a second peeled shrimp into my bowl, his tone still gentle. "But if a couple has gotten to that point, it's just ugly. If you really can't make it work anymore, just talk honestly and end things peacefully with a clean break. No need to hurt each other like that or make a public mess." I lowered my gaze and stared at the plump shrimp in my bowl, my fingers tightening slightly. My voice was soft. "What if it was you who cheated? Would you tell me the truth and end it peacefully?" The air grew dense for a moment. Shane looked up at me, his eyes filled with helplessness and a bit of aggrieved innocence, like someone falsely accused. "How could I ever cheat on you? You know that? I love you so much. We're definitely going to get married in the future." I looked at him directly, but inside, my heart was sinking. He didn't answer my question. He only said he wouldn't cheat. That was never the same thing. The rest of the meal went by tastelessly. Shane's phone buzzed a few more times during dinner. He only glanced at it and set it down, ignoring it. When we finished eating and stepped outside the restaurant, he said casually, "I need to head back to school to process some experiment data. Might be late tonight." I nodded and forced a smile. "Okay, be careful." I watched him get into a taxi, then turned to my own car and followed at a moderate distance, not too far, not too close. The taxi wove through several turns before finally stopping at the entrance of a park, far from the southern part of Shane's university campus. Shane got out of the car. A girl in a white dress came running out from inside the park, her smile bright and cheerful. She ran straight into Shane's arms. She looked young, around the same age as Shane and me, with a high ponytail and an energetic, adorable vibe, exactly like the innocent junior he mentioned in the post. Shane reached out naturally to tuck a windblown strand of hair behind her ear, the motion so tender it was blinding. The girl looked up at him and said something, her tone light and familiar, before casually wrapping her arm around his. Sitting in my car with no expression, I raised my phone and zoomed in. I snapped several photos in a row. In the photos, Shane's profile still looked handsome as ever, his eyes showing the same indulgence I had seen many times before. But only today did I realize that indulgence wasn't meant for me alone. I put my phone down, reached into the glove compartment, pulled out a pack of cigarettes, and lit one. The sharp smoke filled my lungs, and the haze blurred my vision. Suddenly, it all felt meaningless. Was I really going to go out there and scream at Shane now? Just to end up being the crazy, irrational girlfriend in his narrative? While I was still dazed, Shane and that girl had already walked far enough that they were almost out of my sight entirely. I stubbed out the cigarette in the car's ashtray and, without hesitation, turned the car around and drove off. Later that night, when Shane came home, he was clearly in a good mood. He froze for a second when he saw me sitting at the bar. "You're still up?" he asked as he walked over, naturally reaching to take my wine glass from me. "You're drinking again? Try to cut back a little, it's not good for your health." I pulled the glass out of his reach and downed the wine in one go. "You have a junior named Emma, right?" I set the glass down and stared directly at him. Shane's movements paused, and the ease in his expression slowly froze. I let out a small laugh. "Shane, I'm still your girlfriend, aren't I? Can I ask what kind of relationship you two have?" He hesitated for a couple of seconds, then smiled like it was nothing. "Emma, she's my direct junior. We're in the same research group. A bit slow, honestly, but we see each other almost every day." He paused, then looked at me with a smile. "But babe, how do you even know about her?" I stared right back at him without replying. After coming home earlier that day, I had gone through every single post from Shane's social media account, the one he used to make that anonymous forum post. He had written about the moment he first felt attracted to the innocent junior, about how he got closer to her under the pretense of mentoring her for a project, about how she kissed him even though she knew he had a girlfriend. He even wrote about the time last month when I was hospitalized from overworking. While he claimed to be out of town for an academic seminar, he had actually gone with her to a hot spring resort owned by the Lin family. When I didn't respond, Shane stepped forward and tried to wrap his arms around my waist. "What's wrong? Did you misunderstand something?" I turned slightly and avoided his touch. "I want to sleep alone tonight," I said, my voice flat. "Go use the study." Without waiting to see how he reacted, I walked straight into the bedroom. That night, I lay in bed, my mind restless. Both of our families knew about our relationship. Even though I was 3 years older than Shane, his parents really liked me. He was still working on his PhD, but our parents had already hinted multiple times, some subtly, some directly, that it was time for us to get married. My thoughts spun in chaos until I heard a soft click at the door. I immediately closed my eyes and slowed my breathing. The door creaked open just a sliver. I heard quiet footsteps approach the bed. In the darkness, I could feel Shane's gaze sweeping over my face. "Still asleep?" he whispered softly, trying to test me. I didn't respond. Moments later, I felt him gently pick up the phone beside my pillow. The screen lit up faintly. He was clearly checking through my phone. My chest tightened, then slowly relaxed. Fortunately, I had long made it a habit to erase all browsing history and clear the app background after checking the gossip forums. Soon enough, he returned the phone to its place. It seemed he hadn't found anything. He tucked the blanket gently around me and left a soft kiss on my cheek, then quietly exited the room. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. My chest felt tight, as if stuffed with cotton, suffocating me. I wasn't the one who had done something wrong. So why was I the one carrying all this weight? I threw off the blanket, ready to confront Shane right then and there. But the moment I opened the door, I saw Shane already dressed and about to go out. He flinched when he saw me. "You're up?" I frowned. "It's so late, where are you going?" His eyes darted to the side, uncertain. He didn't answer. At that moment, his phone rang loudly from his pocket. The ringtone was shrill in the silence of the night. Shane's face changed, and he instinctively reached for his phone. I moved faster than he did. In one swift motion, I reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Before he could stop me, I had already swiped to answer the call. "Hello?" I said. From the other end came a syrupy, delicate female voice, laced with a touch of grievance and a childish pout. "Shane, when are you coming? I messed up the experiment data again. Ugh, I'm so dumb." I held the phone up, the speaker loud and clear. That sickly sweet voice spilled out into the air, every word crystal clear. Shane's face turned a stormy gray. He yanked the phone out of my hand and immediately hung up. "You know how important this project with my professor is," he said, taking a deep breath. "I have to handle it right away. Emma just panicked. She didn't want to mess up again. Don't overthink it." He looked at me, his expression conflicted, then softened his tone. You've always been the understanding one. You've always supported my work. You wouldn't want to see me fail because of a little mistake, right? I suddenly laughed, not sarcastically, not coldly, just genuinely found it all ridiculously absurd. I couldn't help but let the laughter slip out. If this experiment is so important, I said, why are you letting someone so dumb she can't even handle basic data be involved? His brows tightened. Before he could reply, I tossed the car keys into his chest. If it's that urgent, take the car. My voice was eerily calm. Drive safe. Shane froze, as if completely caught off guard by my reaction. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end only pressed his lips together, grabbed the keys, and hurried out the door. With a loud bang, the door slammed shut. The living room fell silent again. I leaned weakly against the wall. A sharp pain throbbed in my chest, but I still found myself gasping for air like I couldn't get enough. In that moment, something inside me clicked. Maybe not everything needed to be said out loud. Maybe some truths didn't even need confrontation. That night, surprisingly, I slept well. The next morning, I scheduled a home packing service. Every single one of Shane's belongings was boxed up neatly. Miss Nguyen, just confirming, these are all the items, correct? The mover asked as he checked the inventory. I looked through everything carefully, then slid on my sunglasses. Yes, I'll take a cab, follow behind me. I left the apartment first. I knew there was no way Shane actually spent the night at the lab. So I tracked his location through the car's GPS. He was at a hotel. The ridiculous part was that the hotel was only a few kilometers away from our home. He hadn't even bothered to drive far. I didn't know whether I should blame myself for trusting him so blindly all this time. I had the movers wait with me in front of the hotel entrance. Watching guests come and go, I thought of that post Shane had made, how he complained about me. 6 months ago, there was a critical project at my company. As the team lead, I lived out of the office for over 2 weeks. I didn't even have time to dress up, let alone have a proper conversation with Shane. When the project finally ended, I skipped the celebration party and drove straight to Shane's campus. I wanted to surprise him. At first, his eyes lit up when he saw me, but the joy only lasted a second before his expression turned awkward, even slightly disgusted. Back then, I brushed it off, thinking I must have imagined it. But when I excitedly got out of the car, he quickly yanked the door shut, his eyes avoiding mine. Emily, don't get out. If my classmates see you like this, they might. You know how it is. I have a bit of a reputation at school. At the time, I was still mentally drained from the high-pressure project. I was dressed casually, my hair was tied up messily, no makeup, and there were faint dark circles under my eyes. His disdain was painfully obvious. I was furious then. We had a full-blown argument. I thought he was being dramatic and unreasonable. Later, when I calmed down, I even blamed myself. I wondered if I really didn't care enough about my appearance. Was I being too sensitive? Had I really embarrassed him, made him feel ashamed? Thinking back on it now, it all seemed laughable, absolutely ridiculous. I let out a bitter smile. A man who judges his partner based on appearances, who posts on social media justifying infidelity, who bends over backward to defend cheating, and only now did I finally see who he really was. I couldn't even begin to describe how I felt in that moment, but one thing was absolutely clear. I didn't want Shane anymore. When Shane and Emma came out of the hotel hand in hand, I raised my hand and waved. The moment Shane saw me, every trace of his smile vanished. His face went completely pale. I tilted my chin toward him slightly. Just give all the stuff to this gentleman right here. When Shane saw all of his belongings placed in front of him, his expression turned cold. He shook off Emma's hand and strode over to me. Emily, what the hell are you doing? Can't you just talk to me properly? Did you really have to pull this stunt? For some reason at that very moment, his words reminded me of what he'd written in that forum post, hurting others and yourself, becoming a joke for people to laugh at. But the joke here was never supposed to be on the one who got betrayed. I slapped his hand away and folded my arms, letting out a scoff. So you cheat, and I'm supposed to help you pack? Wow, Shane, your audacity knows no bounds. You must be Shane's girlfriend, right? You've really misunderstood, Emma interjected nervously, her tone cautious, as if she was frightened. We stayed late at the lab last night, and Shane said I was in such a bad state that I'd probably mess up the data. so he kindly booked me a room. I've never stayed alone before, and he just spent the night teaching me how to collect experiment data properly. Nothing happened, I swear. Please don't misunderstand him, okay? You hear that? Shane said, his face growing darker under the stares of people around us. You already know everything. Why make a scene? Just tell them to bring the stuff back up. We can talk this out later. There is no later. I stared at him, completely expressionless. We're done, Shane. We're over. He froze for a few seconds, staring at me like he couldn't believe what he'd heard. Then he suddenly grabbed my wrist. What did you say? I looked at his hand on mine and didn't even think before sinking my teeth into it. As Shane hissed in pain and Emma looked at me in horror and scolded him softly, I laughed. Shane, you once said your hands were for signing joint research papers with me. But now that they have other uses, maybe they're better off ruined. I said those words with terrifying calm, turned my head, and walked away, one step at a time. Behind me, Emma was still gently comforting Shane, and he was calling my name, but he didn't come after me. It didn't matter. None of it did. What mattered was that I'd gotten it out of my system, ended this relationship, and was ready to begin a new chapter of my life. That was what mattered to me. I've never been someone with a good temper. Once I had a clear head, I told both my parents and Shane's about our breakup. As for the reasons and the photos, I sent each family a full copy, unedited. Maybe I was being overly cautious, maybe even paranoid, but I wasn't the one who did anything wrong, and I had no intention of ever letting anyone pin the blame on me in the future. I refused to be painted as the guilty party one day. My parents were furious. They cursed him out over the phone without holding back. I ignored every call from Shane's parents. I didn't care if they were calling to defend their precious son or not. I didn't want anything to do with that family ever again. I threw myself into work, doing everything I could to numb myself as quickly as possible. But one evening, when I got home after work and opened the door, I was greeted by the familiar smell of my favorite home-cooked dishes. I stood frozen in the doorway for several seconds before I saw Shane in an apron, smiling brightly at me. You're back. I made all your favorite dishes. Go wash up, let's eat. I stared at him, my brain unable to process what I was seeing. Then, the moment I snapped out of it, I charged forward and shoved Shane hard. At the same time, I flipped the table with all my strength. The food Shane had carefully cooked was now scattered all over the floor. The dinnerware we had once picked out together lay in pieces, shattered, useless. I stood there breathing heavily, staring at Shane's face dark as coal. My hand trembled as I pointed toward the door. Get out. Shane clenched his jaw, took a deep breath, like he was struggling to hold back his temper. Emily, we have a problem we need to solve, not a person to get rid of, he said as he took off his apron, walked around me, and sat down on the couch, his voice low and heavy. It's true that something happened between me and Emma. I got confused. The lab progress wasn't going well, and you were always busy with work. I didn't have anyone to talk to. She was always there, comforting me. You have no idea how much pressure I'm under as a PhD student. There were so many times I thought about jumping off the roof. She's the one who kept pulling me back. He continued, voice raw. I know it was wrong, but she said it would only last until we got married. And nothing physical happened between us, I swear. After you found out that day, I cut off all contact with her. Shane's voice grew strained. I admit it, I messed up. But Emily, if you had just cared a little more, maybe we wouldn't have ended up like this. So he wasn't here to ask for forgiveness. He was here to blame me. I gave him a sharp, bitter smile, but just then, his phone screen lit up. One silent message popped up after another, perfectly visible from where I stood. Shane, I bought that sexy lingerie you said looked good. I'll wear it at our spot tonight, okay? Actually, never mind. I'll just wear it under my lab coat. No one will see it anyway. When you're tired from the experiments, you can sneak a touch. I really like you, he said. Being with me felt different. Does that mean we're perfectly compatible, physically and emotionally? My face twisted. I couldn't hold back the wave of nausea and gagged audibly. Shane jumped up like he'd been electrocuted, rushing over in a panic. Is it your stomach again? I'm not around and you're... He stopped mid-sentence. I assumed he finally noticed the messages flashing on his screen. I stared at him with pure disgust. For the first time, a violent thought flickered across my mind. Why is he still alive, standing here in front of me? This is what you meant by nothing physical happened? I said, my voice shaking. You're really something, Shane. So clean, so innocent. I grabbed his phone and hurled it at him with all my strength. Get out. Get the hell out of my home. I was trembling all over, eyes red, heart pounding like it was being pummeled again and again. But Shane, flustered, still tried to explain himself. Before you call me a liar, think carefully, I snapped. Think about that forum post. Think about how you described getting close to Emma step by step. What, if I'd waited until the day you actually brought her into our bed, you'd still tell me it was my fault? My voice rose hoarse and cracked. Shane, what the hell gives you the right? Shane's face went pale, then flushed, then pale again. Without a word, he bent down, picked up his phone, and unlocked it. One by one, he read the messages. Then he muttered a curse and slammed the phone hard onto the floor. It bounced once before landing with a final crash, screen completely shattered, just like the lie he was trying to salvage. Still breathing heavily, Shane looked up at me with wide eyes. So you saw my account? When? Was it before or after you found out about Emma? If you knew something was bothering you, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell me? His voice grew louder, almost desperate. You waited, didn't you? Just to catch me trying to wing you back so you could feel good about dumping me? I stared at the frantic man in front of me and couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. I couldn't stop. The laughter bubbled up from my chest, spilling out louder and louder. I shook my head as tears started streaming down my face. Shane, do you hear yourself? I said through the laughter and the tears. You sound insane. You're the one who messed up. You're the one who bragged online about how you cheated and got away with it. You're the one sharing tips on how to hide it from your girlfriend. This has nothing to do with me. Just as I screamed that last line, there was a sudden knock on the front door. Because of all the noise Shane and I had been making, someone from downstairs had clearly alerted the building management. The property manager had come up to check on us. I wiped the tears from my face, walked to the door, and swung it open. Then, without looking away from Shane, I turned to the manager and said, "Someone broke in. Please remove this man from my home." Shane stared at me in shock, completely stunned. And I wasn't done. Shane cursed under his breath and stormed out. After he left, the property manager and my downstairs neighbor stood there awkwardly, clearly unsure of what to say. I leaned warily against the wall, utterly exhausted, and waved a hand at them. There won't be any more noise. I'm sorry about this. Just give me a minute. After the blow-up with Shane, the apartment was a complete mess. The neighbor, likely having guessed what had happened, just offered a few obligatory remarks before heading back downstairs. The thought of becoming the subject of neighborhood gossip again irritated me to no end. Even so, I still called a home cleaning service and a locksmith, and I made sure to inform the property manager to remove Shane's face from the building's facial recognition system. Strangely enough, before Shane showed up that day, I was still deeply affected by the fallout of our relationship. But after the fight, after seeing the real him so clearly, my emotions felt surprisingly calm. It was like the ropes that had bound my limbs suddenly snapped, letting the blood rush back into my body. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. But then Shane began to unravel. He understood now, understood that I had seen all sides of him, that I knew who he really was. And still, he had the nerve to keep contacting me. He acted like nothing had happened. He messaged me about lab progress, about the weather, about stray cats on campus. Every detail, every word, like he was still living in the version of our life that he destroyed. I ignored him. I didn't understand what he was trying to achieve. Then he started waiting outside my office building. When I saw him there, he looked worn down, no longer smug like before. He looked at me, like he wanted to say something, but hesitated. "I just wanted to see you, to see if you're doing okay." I stared at him blankly, unsure of how to even respond. Shane continued, almost talking to himself. "I used to imagine what it would be like if we broke up. I thought I'd move on easily, but I couldn't. I can't." He gave a bitter smile. "You probably think I'm pathetic, that I want it both ways, but I really can't help it. I can't focus on anything. I just want to be with you. His voice softened, cautious now. I know I was wrong. I know I messed up. I've cut things off with Emma completely. I deleted all those posts. I even apologized online to those two women who were going to confront the guy in that thread. I want to change. I want to make it right. Will you give me another chance? I looked at him closely. It was obvious Shane wasn't doing well. I could see that much, but to my surprise, I didn't feel anything. No pity, no warmth, not even anger. Even the words coming out of his mouth didn't stir any emotion in me. So, you're saying all this because you've compared us again, me and Emma? Measured which of us better suits your taste? Who matches you more emotionally or physically? Shane's expression changed slightly. His voice trembled. No, that's not it. I never said anything like that. But before he could finish, his phone rang insistently, like death itself was calling. He tried to reject the call a few times. Then, when he noticed my mocking expression, he gave up and answered. A woman's shrill voice came through, distorted but loud enough for me to hear. Shane's face twisted with frustration and he growled, "Cut it out!" Whatever she said next made him snap. He ended the call with a furious swipe. I have to go, he said, trying to maintain some composure. His lips were tight, his whole body tense. But believe me, I'm going to change. I mean it this time. Just wait for me, Emily. Please wait. He turned and rushed off to catch a cab, and I walked away too, without hesitation, without a single look back. Shane did delete the posts, but suddenly someone on my social feed changed their username to Emma and started aggressively flooding my feed. I glanced at it. The time they were added matched up. It was months ago, long before I found that post. Turned out the account used to promote beauty products, but the owner had always been Emma. She had been lurking in my friends list for that long. Just the thought made my skin crawl. Before deleting her, I clicked on her profile one last time to see her feed. The posts were full of her and Shane, intimate, unfiltered. The most explicit photos showed their bodies pressed tightly together. Red marks on Shane's skin, and bruises proudly displayed on hers, made it very clear just how wild they'd been. The most recent picture was of Shane shirtless, cigarette in hand, standing by a window looking thin and worn. I've always been sensitive to the smell of smoke. Since the day we got together, Shane had never once smoked in front of me. I guess he really was more compatible with Emma. After all, she could tolerate everything about him, every vice, every habit. They were a perfect match. After deleting her from my contacts, I didn't expect she'd come find me in person. The moment the receptionist told me a girl was looking for me, I already had a bad feeling. When I saw her, I wasn't even surprised. Standing in the corridor outside the office, Emma looked at me with none of the fake timidness she used to put on. She openly scanned me from head to toe, her eyes filled with undisguised malice. "Auntie," she said, "you've occupied Shane's time for years. You should feel satisfied by now, right?" Her words made me frown instantly. That small reaction only seemed to please her more, and her tone grew even more aggressive. "Maybe you don't know this," she said smugly, "but hardly anyone at school even knows you are dating Shane. You're a few years older than him, and no matter how well you take care of yourself, age is still there. If people knew you were his girlfriend, all they'd think is that Shane has a thing for older women." Emma held her head high, looking completely unbothered, like she was daring me to do something. I noticed the way she kept patting her arms nervously. She couldn't quite stay still. I suddenly chuckled. "You're in such a rush to come provoke me. Could it be Shane isn't talking to you anymore? And now you think messing with me will get his attention back?" Her eyes darkened, turning cold and vicious. "So it really was you, you butch, stirring up trouble between me and Shane," she snapped. "You really think someone your age can hold on to a young, handsome, promising scientist? I'm better for him. I'd give everything for him." I stopped smiling. Too bad he doesn't seem to want it. That set her off. She screamed and lunged toward me, but someone shoved her aside. Shane had arrived just in time. Seeing Emma's twisted face, he slapped her across the cheek without hesitation. "Have you lost your damn mind?" he snapped. Emma clutched her face in disbelief, her voice shrill with rage and heartbreak. "You hit me? For her? I love you, Shane. I love you so much. Why are you doing this to me?" Shane glanced nervously in my direction, then turned back and yanked her arm. His voice dropped low, tense with anger. I gave you what you asked for. What more do you want from me? I didn't want to hear any more of their mess. With a curse under my breath, I turned to go back upstairs until Shane called out to me. Emily, he said, eyes fixed on me. In that fleeting moment, I thought I saw the Shane I had first fallen in love with, shy, gentle, eyes full of light. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you again. My heart didn't move an inch. I turned and walked away. From the window upstairs, I watched as Emma continued throwing a tantrum, throwing herself to the ground, clinging to Shane, begging. I couldn't hear what she was demanding, but she wouldn't stop until Shane reluctantly nodded. Only then did she grab his hand with satisfaction and let him pull her up. Even after all this, Shane wouldn't give up. When I blocked him on every platform, calls, texts, social media, he started sending flowers, food deliveries, gifts, trying to get a response. He waited outside my office again and again, as if persistence alone could wear me down. But how could I soften my heart, knowing exactly what kind of person he really was? Would I really risk my future on the hope that one day he might miraculously grow a conscience and stop screwing up? I didn't want to be that kind of fool. I didn't want to be haunted by this forever. So I thought it through, and accepted my boss's offer to transfer to a different city. The new place was close to my hometown. I could visit my parents anytime, or leave whenever I needed to. It felt like freedom, something I couldn't get here anymore. After submitting the transfer paperwork to our HR department, I sold my apartment as quickly as possible. Once the legal documents were finalized, I shipped my last remaining belongings to the new city. I stayed at a hotel for a few days, waiting for my company to finish processing the transfer paperwork. As soon as everything was finalized, I headed straight to the airport. What I didn't expect was that Shane somehow found out I was leaving. He appeared right at the entrance of the terminal, just as I had picked up my boarding pass. He was wearing that trench coat I had once complimented him on over and over, telling him how great he looked in it. He walked toward me, step by step, but stopped a few paces away, as if he didn't dare get too close. He looked visibly worn down, his body carrying the stench of alcohol. His hair was a mess, his stubble unshaven, and his eyes bloodshot. His lips moved slightly, his gaze dropping to the suitcase beside me. And then a single tear fell. "You hate me that much now?" he asked, voice trembling. "So much that you're giving up your job, just walking away like this? Even sold the apartment. Are you really that afraid I'll keep bothering you?" I looked at him and nodded calmly. Yes. That simple honesty seemed to wound him more deeply than anything else. Silent tears streamed down his face as he stared at me with the look of an abandoned dog. There were so many times in the past when we fought, and he'd show that expression, and I'd always melt, always soften. That expression had once been his greatest weapon against me. It had become the force he used to make me back down. But now, it had lost its power. "Emily, I really will change. Why won't you give me a chance?" He choked out, his voice hoarse, his words squeezed from deep pain. "I remember that project you worked so hard on," he continued. "You had a junior teammate who made a critical mistake and ruined nearly 6 months of your work. But you still gave him another chance. You told me back then his parents were sick, he was under pressure, he was trying to juggle too much. You said everyone deserves a chance to make things right. You believed in him. Why can't you believe in me?" He took 2 more steps closer, his eyes wide and desperate, voice suddenly soft like a wounded animal. "I know I was a bastard. I know I hurt you, and I'm trying to make up for it. I'll drop out of the PhD program if that's what you want, okay? I'll stay by your side. I'll report everything to you. I'll never lie to you again. Just give me one more chance, just one last chance. Emily, without you, I can't even sleep properly. You can't do this to me." I looked at him, at Shane, this man who once had a familiar face, but now that face blurred before my eyes, then slowly came back into focus. And somehow, it looked like a complete stranger. A face I'd once seen every day, 1,000 days and nights, now felt like someone I didn't know at all. Shane couldn't stop crying. I tilted my head slightly and looked at him. My voice so soft it was like I was back in the early days of our relationship, when we were still in love. "Shane, I'll ask you just one question." He looked at me, eyes misted with tears. "This morning, Whose bed did you wake up in? His chest visibly tightened, and all the color drained from his face. He couldn't say a word. He was begging for forgiveness. But he hadn't even sorted out his own life. Begging me to stay while waking up in someone else's bed. At this point, I actually felt a flicker of gratitude toward Emma for being so unhinged, for endlessly messaging me photos of her and Shane together from different phone numbers. All I had to do was open my inbox, and there they were, photo after photo, flaunting their affair. As I turned to head toward security, I could still hear him sobbing behind me. At the same time, I deleted all the photos from my phone. Filth never belonged on my phone, and neither did filthy men. At my new company, I thrived. Within just 2 years, I was promoted to senior manager. My salary and benefits were far better than before. My new coworkers were kind, and since they knew I was single, they eagerly tried to set me up with potential dates. I met one of them a few times. He seemed like a good person, so I kept in touch. He was a college professor, reserved, a little slow to open up. Every time he saw me, he'd get visibly nervous. Funny how I always seemed to fall for the same type of man. I just hoped this time wouldn't leave me disappointed. On our 6th date, he finally stammered out a confession. I rested my chin in my hand, smiled, and said yes. Eventually, we began planning our wedding. He came with me on a trip back to my hometown, and my parents adored him right away. But that night, while we were home, my mom pulled me aside. She looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. "Shane? Hasn't contacted you again, has he?" She sighed, and only when she was sure I had completely let go of the past did she finally begin to speak. "When you two broke up, your dad and I were furious. We kept cursing that kid, hoping he'd get what he deserved. Maybe heaven really was watching, because it turns out, he did. According to my mom, Shane never found peace after I left. He tried countless times to cut things off with Emma, but she refused. At first, she threatened suicide, threatened to jump off a building. Then she blackmailed him with all those intimate photos of the two of them. Shane had once thought he was the master of juggling 2 women. He thought he was untouchable. But it turned out he was just a piece of meat on someone else's chopping block. Under Emma's constant torment, Shane never finished his PhD. He was already getting older, and jobs were hard to come by. His life stalled, directionless and bitter. Then Emma got pregnant. Her mother, equally skilled at making trouble, forced Shane's family to take her in. What started as one woman wrecking his life quickly became 2 women destroying it together. That little trio. Last year, their daughter, yes, the very one, threw a tantrum, saying she didn't want to live in a small house. She forced Shane's parents to sell their old home to buy a bigger one. She said if they didn't do it, she'd jump. Shane got into a fight with her. They struggled, both fell from the building. She died, along with the baby. Shane survived, but he was paralyzed. He'd likely never have children again. I lowered my head and gently rubbed my mom's hand, smiling quietly. "Let's not talk about that anymore, Mom," I said softly. "Tell me, don't you think the wedding photos of me and my husband turned out beautifully?"